Hi, and welcome to the second of my Kungsleden map follow-along videos. This will cover the second section of the trail, which goes from Saltoluotka to Kvikkjokk. The map I'm using here is a 1 to 50,000, so it's just a bit more detailed than the previous one, and each grid square is a kilometre. So you start off in Saltoluotka, which has a fuel station. It's got a larger shop than the ones that are at the huts, and if you need to, you can use it as a chance to stock up on supplies. You can also get breakfast here. It's a kind of Swedish buffet with porridge, cereal, yogurt, toast, ham, cheese, coffee, etc. I would definitely say it's worth getting. From this section onwards, you'll find that you'll also be able to get phone signal in some places, especially when you're up high on the fells. On the previous part, there's zero phone signal, so as soon as you leave Abisko, you don't have any signal, and you don't really get any until the bus to Saltoluotka. So what this means is you can start checking the weather. The mountain huts have a forecast displayed for that day and the next day. Because of the way that the mountain weather works, the forecast is very specific to that place. You can cross into the next valley and the weather can change significantly. The best weather service for the Kungsleden is the Norwegian one, and they have an app called YR. It will often have the locations of the mountain huts and other remote places in which you might not be able to find on Google. In general, mountain weather does funky things, so any forecast you have, the accuracy of it beyond a couple of days can be a bit suspect. Anyway, once you've sorted yourself out in Saltoluotka, you head off on the Kungsleden. So you climb up through some birch forest and onto this sort of pass between Saltoluotka and Skierffe. You have nice views back down over the lakes, and on a clear day you can even see all the way back to Kvikkjokk. The path's pretty easy. You head up a little bit above these rivers. You have a nice ridge to your west. You pass by this little emergency shelter, but it was a nice day, so I didn't really stop at it. And you keep on heading up. I mean, there's nothing particularly significant happening here. Anyway, you keep on heading onwards. Eventually you get to the kind of top of the passover, and you can start to see down into the next valley and the lake you need to cross, and then there's a nice gentle descent down to Skierffe. Here there's a ferry over the lake which is run by a Sami family, and there's also an SDF cabin near the crossing that you can stay at. I crossed the lake. There used to be rowboats here to do the lake crossing, but they were taken away because it's very long and also it's quite rocky as well, so you need to stick to the path. Anyway, the ferry, there's one in the morning and one in the afternoon. It's a pretty short ride over the lake. He goes quite fast. You wiggle your way through the lake and end up here at this emergency shelter on the other side of the lake. A couple of spots to camp directly as you land, but then as you head up, there aren't really any, and there aren't really any sources of water up on the fell, so just bear that in mind if you're thinking of camping there. The path continues through some kind of light birch forest, and then you go up here. This is really steep up here, but it's really short. And then you're up onto this open fell which goes over to Skierffe cabin. So there's a little trick that I did here. If you want to climb the Skierffe mountain and you're camping, then you can do a little shortcut, which the warden at Saltoluotka hut told me about. So there's a little sign just about here telling you that there's phone signal to contact the ferry if we're going northbound. At this point you can turn off the path and head over here past this little peak just across the open fell, and then sort of camp by these lakes in this little dip between the mountains. What this avoids is if you were to go all the way to Skierffe, you head over here and then you go down to Skierffe, and then if you're camping there, and then you go all the way back up and along here to go up to the Skierffe. and this just saves you, I think, about 800 meters of ascent or descent. Going across here is really easy. It's not rocky, it's not boggy, it's just sort of open fell, which is really nice to walk across. This camp spot it's really beautiful, but it's also very exposed, so it could be quite windy and cold. It was cold when I was there, but it was very still. The next day, I packed all my stuff up, headed over to here, dropped my bag with all my heavy things in, just on the mountain here, and then headed up to Skierffe just with a bottle of water and some snacks. It was a really, really nice day. So you go up over here, round, there's some water here if you need some, and then you sort of scramble up this path to the top of Skierffe, which is, apparently it's Sweden's most famous view. I didn't know that when I went up there, but they have a really nice view up the valley this way and then down over this river delta below and the lake beyond. So you head back the way you came and go back and get your bag, and then on this path here which links back up with the Kungsleden here, and then you head down to Axé hut. Axé seems pretty nice, but I didn't stay there for very long. It has a shop and has a sauna. I decided to press on, so I didn't stay over. There's a lake crossing here, and there are two options for it. You can either get the ferry, which goes in the morning or the evening, or there are rowboats. So I was lucky, and not only were there two rowboats on this side, I arrived at the rowboats just as someone else was getting in, so we rowed across together. Crossing's quite long, it's about 2 kilometers or so, so I wouldn't do it in the wind. It was a really still day when we did it. The water was kind of like glass, and it was really kind of nice actually. So we both rowed about half of the way across and got some nice views up into Sarek and then further down on the rest of the lake. And then on the other side you secure your boat up. There's a little emergency shelter there if you need to stay there, and probably it's an okay spot to camp. The path here enters some kind of conifer forest, which is a nice change from all the birch initially. Pretty easy going, fairly flat. You head through the forest. There's some nice spots here by these bridges to camp. You go up onto the sort of side of this mountain. I never found this wind shelter. Don't know if it's still there. And you go up then you're onto a bit of open fell. You keep on heading over, and then the path dips down into a little bit of wood, and you arrive at this Jågge shelter here. So I camped at this emergency shelter. It's got some okay spots for pitching a tent, a good little stream running by, and a set of latrines. You're only supposed to sleep in the huts in an emergency, but a lot of people camp nearby and use them to cook and sit out of the wind, and that's kind of a fine thing to do. It was a nice evening, so I cooked outside. So heading out of the hut, you climb back onto a bit of open fell here. You go past this bridge, which is probably the sketchiest bridge I'd ever been on. It seemed to be held together with ratchet straps. Keep on going between these two sort of outcroppings of rock. It's very scree here, so it's slow going. And you head down into this forest, which you basically spend all of the rest of the day going in the forest. This section that you go through to Partes, fairly kind of okay. Again, each of the bridges, they usually have some good spots to camp by, some flat places where it seems like people have used to camp near them. This is Partestugan, it's another STF hut. This doesn't have a shop or a sauna, so I'd only use it if you can't make the distance and you need somewhere to stay or you don't have a tent. And then you keep on going down the valley here, and then you enter what I would say is for me was the hardest part of the Kungsleden. So all of this through here isn't really a path, it's just rocks which were really slippy, and you just had to spend sort of like 5 or 6 kilometers really watching every single step. You're also in the forest as well, so it's really difficult to judge how far you've gone. I just seem to go on for absolutely ever. You eventually meet up with the kind of winter skiing trail, across some bridges, and after a while you meet up with gravel track which goes to Kvikkjokk. So there's a kind of fuel station here. Isn't actually an STF one, I think it's just affiliated with it. There are some spots to camp further down from it. There's no service hut where you can pay to use a kind of kitchen or anything. There's just a kind of flat grassy area which you can pitch your tent up, and it isn't the flattest one. There's a shop which is fairly well stocked, but I think it's quite expensive. Pay them to use the sauna and the shower. They have time slots for the showers, which is kind of odd, but they're really good showers, so I definitely would say it's worth going for. You can also book breakfast here, which is a kind of standard breakfast buffet, and that was really good. And then, there are lots of other hikers here to chat to and sort of catch up with. So it's a nice little village. That covers this section 2 from Saltoluotka to Kvikkjokk. I hope you found this useful, and thank you for watching. In the next video I'll cover the section of the Kungsleden which goes from Kvikkjokk to Jågge.